Hey, what's up guys, Leonard here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to work with databases using SQLite 3 in JavaScript. Now I'm using discord.js to work with the database, but you easily could use regular JavaScript and it works just as well. Quick disclaimer, I am not showing you how to install SQLite 3, but it's pretty easy if you have npm, and I'll put a link in the description below on how to do that. But anyways, let's get started. Alright, so to work with the SQLite database and the library, we need to import it. So up on the top, we'll do const SQLite and then equals require, and then we'll do require SQLite 3 should pop up for you if you have it in your node modules. And then we're doing .verbose. So I'm not going to get into great detail about verbose, but essentially you have to use more words to do what you want to do with the databases, but it makes it a lot easier to understand for beginners. Alright, so another thing you need to know is that these databases that we're making, you can't just read them. You need a certain program to open them, so I'd suggest getting DB browser, which I'll have a link to in the description below. And that way you can open up your databases and view all the information on them. Because when you're implementing this stuff with your code, it's going to be very hard if you can't easily see what data is actually stored on the database. So I'd recommend downloading that and getting that. So we could make a blank database in MySQL, but let's make the database if it doesn't exist in code. So in my ready function here, I'm going to do let db, or whatever variable you name you want, equal SQLite, new SQLite, database, and then gotta put some parameters in here. So this would be the file name, /, which means in the same folder that your JavaScript file is in, and then just give it a name. I'm giving mine a name of testdb.db, and then comma SQLite 3.openReadWrite or SQLite 3.openCreate. Now I had to do a little research because normally I just created mine. I didn't in MySQL, not with code. But I figured out you have to do you have to put that or in there. For some reason you can't just do .openCreate. I don't know why, but that's just what you have to do, and it worked for me. So it'll also only create it if it doesn't exist already, obviously. Otherwise that'd be kind of dumb if you had multiple files of that. Anyway, so let's run it here, and hopefully, so it says online and the database should be created. Alright, so let me just hop over to DB browser. Sorry, I keep calling it MySQL, but it's really DB browser, the name of the program to open the database files. So the database was created with our code, but here I have opened a different database to try to explain tables to you, which is the next thing we're going to learn. So tables, you can have as many tables as you want in a database, but it just has, so you can have a table for users and then a table for servers or something like that. Then in your tables you have all these rows here, and then you have the columns on top. So the rows would be people's information, and then the columns would be all the different types of values they have, I don't know, username, user ID, blah blah blah. And then you can have that saved in each row per the user. And so that's kind of how database tables work, and then all the values. So then let's hop back over into our code and make our first table. Alright, so to create our first table, we should do that. Let's do that as a message function, and we could copy and paste the let db on line 7 there, but let's rewrite it again, or at least I am. So do let db equal new SQLite.database, and then the same file name /testdb.db, or whatever file name yours is, comma SQLite 3, So we're going to do open read write because normally you want to be able to read and write the information on the database. If you are just reading the data, you can do open read only, which will only allow you to read the data and not write to the database. We need to create a table here. So we're going to do db, our database, dot run. And now whatever we put in this string here is pretty much just going to get executed. It's kind of weird that, I think at least, that SQLite does like everything in a string. But once you get used to it, you'll be fine. So to get started, we need to create a table, like I said, in the database. So we are going to do create, in all caps, table, if not exists, so that we make sure we don't make duplicate ones. And then we need the name of our table after this, so let's just call it data. And then we'll do parenthesis, so this will be the columns in the database. So for the first one, let's just do username. And then so we can do text or integer as the, like, telling the database that's the kind of data we're going to put in there. There's also other stuff which you probably use a lot less often, but you can look at the documentation for those. But for this one, let's do integer not null. So the not null part is not necessary. I just like to do it. That way I'll get like an error or something if I try to put a null value in the database. Null means nothing essentially. It's not undefined, there's just nothing. So I put not null because it helps me target or see problems that I have. But you don't have to do that, but I'm just going to do that here. So we'll have user ID, which is an integer, and I don't want that space to ever be null, and comma for our next one, and then we'll do username. This is obviously going to be a text, and I'm also going to put not null here. So to create the database, we do create table if not exists, table name, parenthesis, and then our value, the name of our value, and then if it's text, integer, there's like blob or something else that you can save. You can't actually save arrays, which kind of sucks, but you can convert the array to a string. Anyways, these also can be saved like interchangeably. Like you could have a text where an integer is and an integer where a text is. It won't really affect anything. Alright, so let's run this, and then I have sent a message, which I know you can't see, but I sent a message and we don't have an error. So let's swap over to our database in DB browser and see what happened. Alright, so here we are, and if you just go to browse data and then refresh the page, you see we have a table named data, and then we have two columns, user ID and username. So it worked perfectly, and that's good. Alright, so we have our database table set up, so we can start putting data in there. But first, let's see, when we're trying to get data, if the person doesn't exist, let's add them in there right away. So let's just do this in a command. So let's do let's do this in a command. So if msg or message or whatever you have equals dot get, oops, gotta put that in text, dot get, then we're going to query the data. So to do that, let's do let query equal, and here's some more weird words, but we're going to do select. So we're selecting something from the database, and we're selecting, what are we selecting? We could say user ID, username, and all the values, but if you have too many, that might get complicated, or at least hard to type out all those. So let's just do select star, which will select every column. It's not necessarily the best practice if you have a large database, but for this it'll be fine. And then we'll do from, in all caps again, from which database, and data, the name of our database, and then we will do where. So we'll do where user ID equals question mark. Now I'm doing where because the method I'm showing you right now is how to get one row of data right now, not every single row, so just one person. So the where part will tell us which row we're trying to get here. So that's all we need right there, and then we will do db.get because we're only doing one row. You could do db.all if you're doing like all the rows, but I'm not going to talk about that. Anyways, so we'll do query, which we just defined, comma, brackets. So this will be like where user ID equals what. So we're saying what that what is. So user ID, for right now, I'm just going to define user ID as myself, but you could easily have that value be someone else's user ID, so you can get other people's information, obviously. But anyways, for me, I'm just going to put let user ID equal message.author.id, and then so we need a comma down here again, and error, and then the row. The row will be all the columns that we have selected in that particular row. Alright, so to actually get that, so we need an arrow function here, because it does take, very small amount of time, but it takes time to get that data. And so if there's an error, right away we want to take care of that error. So just log that error, and then we'll return, just so we don't go any farther if there is an error. Then we'll do if. So we want to make sure that the row is defined, otherwise we could run into issues and stuff like that. And this is also where we want to insert the blank data, if you want to call it that, if the person does not exist. So if row equals undefined, then we are going to do something with that. Else, if it is defined, let's get our data. So we'll do let user ID 2, let's call it, equal, so the row, and then what property of the row would be the user ID, which is the column. So that's how you get that. Essentially, it's pretty easy. And then also we'll do let username, and that will obviously be equal to row.username. So that's pretty simple how you get the data. And then, so for right now, let's just console.log that. Obviously, you could send it in a channel if you wanted instead, or do whatever you need to do with it. So we are pretty much done with getting the data. Well, it's very basic, but we can get the data at least and log it. But now if it's undefined, we need to do something with that. So to insert values, we're going to do db.prepare, and then in text again, we'll do insert into data, the name of the table, and then values, and then parenthesis. So these will be our values. We'll just put question mark for our two columns right now, and then we will define those later. And also, I forgot to do let whatever you want to call this. It could be anything. Well, I'll just do insert data equal db.prepare. So then we've prepared the data, but we haven't defined what it is yet. So to do that, we are going to do insert data dot run, and then we can put our values in here. So for right now, we'll just put user ID, and let's call this just uname, so it's not the exact same variable. So we'll just do let uname equal message dot author dot tag. So there we go, we have uname defined. So for user ID, we'll insert the person's user ID, and the username will insert their username and tag. And then db.close, because we want to close the database, and then we want to return. So on the message, if the person doesn't have any data in there, that should insert it into the database because it's not defined. So let's run that and see what we get. Alright, so let me just hop over to Discord and type something in the chat and see what happens. So, and okay, we have an error. Oh, okay, I know what I did. But I could have just redone this and like not show you guys the error, but I'm gonna show you it and show you how to fix it anyways. So we need to do insert data dot finalize before we close the database, because I don't know, I guess you just have to do that. But you only have to do it when you're inserting data, not when you're changing data. So, and now we have another error though, which is also my own fault. I put RWO, not row. Anyway, so, you know, just remember that you have to finalize the data before you are done and close the database. Alright, so let me just run that again and type in get data, and let's see what happens. So, okay, actually, alright, so I must have actually still inserted even with that error, and it returned our username, so that is working perfectly well. We're able to get the username. I know, even though we could just get it from the variable uname, but we're not. We're actually getting it from the database, which is nice. Alright, so actually let's add something into our database and kind of show you how to use it a little bit better. So in db.run on the top there for the create table, let's add another column. What's going to be called word, and it's text not null. So on DB browser, I'm actually going to delete the table, which you could, if you want to, delete the database if you don't have DB browser right now, and it'd recreate the table and stuff once you've run it for you. Alright, before we forget, now that we're inserting data with a new column, we need to make sure that we are telling the thing we're inserting three things, so there's three columns. So put another question mark here, and then in our insert data.run, we'll just put none as a filler word for right now. So let's so you just gotta make sure you do that for how many number of columns you have, if you have null values, or not null values I should say, when you create the database. So let's run it, and then I'll type over on Discord, and alright, so I messed up again, and if you want to pause it and try to figure out why, that'd be good. Otherwise, I'll just tell you right now, it's because we are creating the table at the same time the message is coming in. So to fix that pretty easily, we'll just take this db.run create table and cut it, and then instead of on the message function, let's put it in the ready function. So simple as that. So that way the database should be created right away when the bot turns on and is ready, and when we send our message, it'll be ready. It'll already be there for us to use. Alright, let me type .get data in Discord and come back here, and everything looks fine in the console or terminal. So let's hop over to DB browser and see if our data is actually inserted into the table. Alright, so let's just hit that refresh page, and boom, there we go, a user ID, our username, and the word of none is there. Alright, so now that we know the data is being inserted, let's do our query, or our get data command to query the data. And let me just hop over, type it in, and yep, there we go, it worked. So that's good, and let's move on to the final thing we're going to learn, which is how to change the data you have already put in the tables. But before I do that, let's just change up so we're not getting the username. Let's get the word instead. This will be something we'll change. So we'll log the word instead, and then let's do create another command. So we'll just hop down below this one and do if message dot starts with, and then we'll say dot change. Let's go with that. So then if word starts with dot change, then we will simply just change the word in the database. Alright, so to do that, we simply just do db.run, and then we'll execute the string, which will be set. So what are we changing? So we'll do set word, because that's the column we want to change, and then we're going to do equal to question mark, because we'll fill that in again later. And then we will do comma and then brackets, which is where we will fill in our values. And actually, sorry, we gotta do where. So set it equal to that, but we need to see which row to do it in. So where user ID equals question mark, which we'll also fill in again in these brackets over here. So in these brackets over here, we'll just say we'll just create a variable, and we'll name it word. So we'll do let word equal message dot slice, so to take off the first characters, and then let's see how many is that, 1, 2, blah, 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 like 8 of them. I think that's right. Close enough, anyways. Now, if you are doing something like this, make sure that, obviously you want to make sure that the word is long enough so that if you slice off 8 characters, there's not nothing left behind. But just for right now, I'm not going to do that, but you definitely need to do that. So over here, we'll do word, which is going to fill in our first question mark, and then user ID, which you could do user ID as something else we could change. It could be the user ID of someone else that you specify in the command, but for right now, we'll just do our own. So we are setting word equal to question mark, where user ID is equal to question mark, so which row. And we just go across, so to fill in the first question mark there with the word, and then if you want to change something else at the same time, we can do that. So we'll set word equal to whatever, and then another value equal to question mark, just to have a comma between those, and then that other value would go in between these two, because you just go like left to right. But we're not going to do that right now, because right now I just want to be able to update something, and then I showed you guys how to do multiple at once, so then you can implement that with your code and figure out how to do that. So we'll just run it, and then we will console.log and just say done. That way we know it executed that, and after that we will try to run it. So let me just hop over to Discord. Alright, so I will actually show this one. So should I do the command, which I forgot. Oh yeah, okay, it's dot change. So we'll just do dot change, and then we'll just say this is a word. Alright, so send that, and then hop over to VSC, and there we go, we see done. So we could check the database manually, but let's just type in .get data and see what pops up. So come back, and there we go, this is a word. So it had written this is a word, and we were able to retrieve that from the database. Alright, so we can create a database. If it doesn't exist, we can create a table with columns in it, and then we can also check to see if a person's data is there. If not, we can insert some blank data, and then we can also change data, and we can also get data. So that's pretty much all the basics that you need to know. You can do a lot with just that. Like I said, there's also a way of getting all the rows, which I'm not going to get into, but if you go to the documentation for SQLite 3, you can see that for yourself. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the tutorial. I know it was a long one, and I kind of apologize for it, but I want to try to explain it well to you guys. And if you do have any questions, just leave a comment down below. If you want to get more of fast feedback, you can join my Discord, or just DM me on Discord. I also have a Twitter if you guys want to follow that. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I really hope this helped you use databases in JavaScript and Discord.js.